Hello, and welcome to the M.O.W. channel. Today, we delve into a case that once topped the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, a chilling revelation of the corrupt reality behind a notorious cult. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. The story of Warren Jeffs begins now. The roots of power birth in the fields. To understand the life of Warren Steed Jeffs, one must look deep into his family, background, and the origins of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Fields. Warren Jeffs was born on December 3, 1955, in Sacramento, California, to Rulon Jeffs and Marilyn Steed. Born 2 months premature, he was a physically frail child. Analysts suggest this early physical vulnerability may have been a psychological catalyst for his later obsession with internal control and rigid discipline. Growing up on the outskirts of Salt Lake City, Utah, he was educated in an environment almost entirely isolated from the outside world. His family lineage is intertwined with the history of the Latter-day Saint movement. While the mainstream LDS Church officially abolished polygamy in 1890, under federal pressure, a breakaway group argued that plural marriage was an eternal divine command. They went underground, eventually forming the foundation of the Fields. The rise of a disciplinarian. Warren's father, Rulon Jeffs, was a man of immense influence. Rising to the presidency of the church in 1986, Rulon reportedly had approximately 20 wives and over 60 children. Growing up in this massive, polygamous household, Warren witnessed firsthand how patriarchal authority functioned. In 1976, at the age of 21, Warren became the principal of the Alta Academy, a private church school. For the next 20 years, he played a central role in indoctrinating and controlling the next generation of followers. Those who remember him from that time describe a man fanatically obsessed with rules. He expanded his dominance by policing everything from students' clothing and hairstyles to their smallest words and actions through a religious lens. Seizing the prophet's mantle. Warren's ascent was fueled by his father's total trust. As Rulon aged, Warren became his counselor and spokesperson, seizing control of the church's administration and personnel decisions. He positioned himself as the sole channel for his father's revelations. When Rulon Jeffs died in 2002 at the age of 92, Warren immediately declared himself the successor. In a shocking move just 1 week after the funeral, despite initially warning others not to touch his father's wives, Warren married most of his father's widows. This was a calculated strategy to secure both his bloodline, legitimacy, and religious authority. The reign of fear and control. Excommunication. Warren purged rivals, such as Winston Blackmore in Canada, to ensure absolute loyalty. The power of marriage. As the prophet, he held the exclusive right to assign or dissolve marriages, using the basic human need for family as a tool for leverage. Economic stranglehold. He controlled the United Effort Plan (U.E.P., a land trust that owned the homes and property in Colorado City and Hilldale. If a member displeased him, they were evicted and stripped of their families and livelihood. A modern-day kingdom of crime. Warren Jeffs did not just lead a religion. He built a modern-day kingdom within the United States. He utilized the Fields' vast assets to fund his eventual flight from the law, and used religious symbols to sanctify his crimes. While he claimed to be preserving the pure doctrines of his ancestors, he was actually constructing a massive prison for the souls of thousands. His childhood frailty, the authoritarian lessons learned from his father, and his years spent brainwashing children at Alta Academy, all converged to create a predator who viewed human beings as disposable property. This dark family history serves as the essential foundation for understanding the horrific events that followed, including the YFZ ranch raid in Texas and his time as one of America's most wanted criminals. After Warren Jeffs rose to become the absolute ruler of the Fields, the most tragic shift within the community was the emergence of systematic child abuse and sexual assault. Hidden behind the mask of religious faith, under the guise of establishing priesthood order, Jeffs introduced sadistic methods of control that utterly destroyed the lives of underage girls. Claiming to be the only conduit for direct revelation from God, he declared himself the sole arbiter of every woman's destiny within the community. The child bride system. Stolen innocence. The most heinous aspect of his rule was the orchestrated child bride system. Jeffs selected girls as young as 12 to 15 years old and assigned them as brides to adult men he personally chose. Forced marriage. These unions were framed as celestial commands, brainwashing followers into accepting them without question. Deprivation. These girls were stripped of their right to education and reduced to mere tools for domestic labor and childbirth. The prophet's lust. Jeffs himself sat at the top of this predatory hierarchy. He eventually took 78 wives, many of whom were legal minors. He manipulated these children into his bed by telling them it was a sacred right necessary to reach God. Those who resisted were threatened with eternal damnation and public shaming. The destruction of the family unit. Jeffs utilized a scorched earth strategy to dismantle family bonds and ensure absolute loyalty. The reassignment of families. If a male member showed even a hint of doubt or disloyalty, Jeffs would immediately excommunicate him. The man would lose everything: his home, his property, and most cruelly, his wife and children, who were then reassigned to more loyal followers. Mutual surveillance. This created a climate of extreme fear and competition. Men were forced to blindly obey unethical orders just to keep their families from being taken away. The Lost Boys. To maintain a high ratio of women for older, polygamous men and eliminate future rivals, Jeffs purged hundreds of teenage boys. These lost boys were thrown out onto the streets of unfamiliar cities for trivial sins, severed from their families forever. Education as a tool for brainwashing. Jeffs systematically dismantled the community's education system. Total isolation. He banned all outside information, forcing children to study only his own writings and sermons. The savior complex. Children grew up believing the outside world was a den of evil, and that Jeffs was their only protector. This isolation was so profound that many victims didn't even realize they were being abused. They had no frame of reference for what was normal or legal. The YFZ Ranch. A fortress of secrets. The YFZ, yearning for Zion Ranch in Texas, represented the apex of Jeffs' control. This massive, secluded fortress served as a private base for his criminal activities. The secret temple inside. Jeffs performed secret marriages with minors, even having the audacity to record them. The aftermath. When the ranch was eventually raided, the condition of the children was heart-wrenching. Many suffered from genetic disorders due to inbreeding, malnutrition, and severe psychological trauma. Control through poverty and fear. Finally, Jeffs used the united effort, Plan U.P. Trust to hold the community's assets hostage. Because Jeffs technically owned the land and the houses, followers had to submit to his every whim or face homelessness. He exploited their labor to fund his own lavish lifestyle and legal defense, while the followers lived in grueling poverty, believing their suffering was a sacrifice for the kingdom of God. Ultimately, Warren Jeffs' reign was a masterclass in organized human rights abuse. He took the purest intentions of his followers, their faith, and used it as a chain to enslave them. Under his rule, the fields was transformed into a sprawling prison, where the most horrific crimes against children were justified in the name of God. As the crimes of Warren Jeffs began to leak past the walls of the community and into the outside world, the net slowly began to tighten. A major crack in Jeffs' seemingly impregnable fortress appeared in 2004, when his nephew, Brent Jeffs, filed a formal lawsuit in a Utah court alleging years of sexual abuse at the hands of his uncle. Following this courageous testimony, more victims stepped forward, prompting authorities in Utah and Arizona to recognize the severity of the forced underage marriages and sexual assaults occurring within the fields. In June 2005, when the Mojave County Attorney's Office in Arizona indicted Jeffs on charges of conspiracy to commit sexual assault on a minor, he abandoned his kingdom and vanished. This marked the beginning of one of the most bizarre and meticulously planned manhunts in American legal history. A prophet on the run, the FBI's most wanted. Jeffs' flight from justice was unlike that of an ordinary criminal. He enjoyed organized protection from a network of fanatical followers. The war chest. Using massive funds extorted from his followers, Jeffs carried prepaid debit cards and stacks of cash totaling tens of thousands of dollars. Counter-surveillance. To evade wiretaps, he rotated through dozens of burner phones and strictly controlled all internet access. The top 10 list. In May 2006, recognizing his danger and high-level evasion tactics, the FBI placed Warren Jeffs on its 10 most wanted fugitives list. He was categorized alongside figures like Osama bin Laden, with a staggering $100,000 reward offered for his capture. During his year on the run, Jeffs moved between the American West, Canada, and the Mexican border. He never stayed in one place for long, traveling with a rotation of loyal bodyguards and several of his wives. He used wigs, glasses, and multiple vehicles to confuse investigators. Audaciously, even while a fugitive, he maintained total control over the fields via encrypted messages and continued to perform illegal marriages with underage girls, believing himself to be above the law. The arrest. A simple traffic stop. Despite his elaborate disguises and the fanatical loyalty of his inner circle, such as his brother Seth Jeffs, who refused to cooperate even after being caught with incriminating records, Jeffs' reign of evasion ended due to a minor, mundane mistake. On the night of August 28, 2006, on Interstate 15 near Las Vegas, Nevada, Highway Patrol Trooper Eddie Dutchover noticed a suspicious red Cadillac Escalade. The vehicle caught his eye because its temporary license plate was obscured and it was traveling unusually slow. When the trooper pulled the car over, He found a middle-aged man in a wig and 2 passengers. The driver calmly presented a fake ID with a false name, but the trooper's intuition kicked in. The man's features bore a striking resemblance to the face on the FBI's most wanted posters. A search of the vehicle revealed over $55,000 in cash, 16 mobile phones, numerous wigs and disguise kits. The identity was confirmed when one of the passengers was identified as Naomi Jessup, one of Jeff's wives. At the moment of his arrest, Jeffs did not resist, but reportedly stared at the officers with a calm, chilling expression. The fall of the false prophet. The news of Jeff's capture flashed across the nation, bringing tears of relief to his many victims. Recovered during the investigation were his personal journals and laptop, which contained not only records of his crimes, but also evidence of his obsessive, delusional desire for total dominance. Even from behind bars, Jeffs tried to maintain his grip, prophesying that he would soon be released by divine intervention. However, the legal authorities were already moving to ensure he would never see the outside world again. His arrest was a monumental victory for justice, proving that the vast criminal cartel he ran in the name of God was not untouchable. By being caught during a routine traffic stop in a luxury SUV, bought with the blood money of his impoverished followers, Jeff's image as a holy, ascetic leader was shattered, revealing the greedy criminal beneath. This capture was just the beginning of a long and arduous legal battle. It forced a national conversation on the protection of children's rights and the extent to which the law must intervene in religious sanctuaries. The night Warren Jeffs was pulled over on a Nevada highway became a landmark moment for American justice, the prelude to the trial of the century. Following the arrest of Warren Jeffs, the American judicial system began an unprecedented legal journey to punish the inhumane crimes he committed. The first battle took place in St. George, Utah, in 2007. Jeffs was indicted for being an accomplice to the rape of Elissa Wall, who was forced to marry an adult man at the age of 14. This trial was more than just a criminal case. It was a symbolic inquiry into how far the state can intervene to punish child abuse perpetrated under the guise of religious freedom. The first blow. The Utah trial. In the courtroom, Jeffs maintained a chilling, expressionless silence. His defense team argued that all actions were religious customs protected by the freedom of faith. However, the courageous testimony of Elissa Wall moved the jury. She vividly described how Jeffs psychologically oppressed her and framed the forced marriage as a command from God. Consequently, the Utah court sentenced Jeffs to 10 years to life in prison. The legal battle faced a setback in 2010, when the Utah Supreme Court overturned the conviction due to a flaw in jury instructions. While this shocked victims, it ultimately paved the way for even harsher retribution. The turning point. The Texas raid and trial. While the Utah case was delayed, Texas authorities took the lead. Following the massive 2008 raid on the YFZ ranch in El Dorado, Texas, a mountain of evidence began to suffocate Jeffs. Texas prosecutors charged him with aggravated sexual assault and sexual assault of minors, specifically 12 and 15-year-old brides. Because Texas had much stricter sentencing guidelines for sex crimes, this became Jeffs' most dangerous battlefield. The trial in San Angelo. 2011. The 2011 trial in San Angelo, Texas, drew global attention. In a calculated and bizarre move, Jeffs fired his legal team and chose to represent himself. The strategy: he attempted to turn the courtroom into a pulpit, threatening the judge and jury with divine judgment and rambling about how he only followed God's law. The smoking gun. Prosecutors neutralized his rhetoric with devastating evidence seized from the ranch: personal journals, handwritten records of his sexual crimes, graphic media photos of inappropriate contact with children, audio recordings, heartbreaking files of the victims' voices. The testimony of the victims became even more powerful. Women who were once paralyzed by fear stood in court to expose the physical and emotional violence they endured. One victim, who was forced to become Jeffs' wife at just 12 years old, moved the courtroom to silence as she testified that Jeffs dismissed her childhood terror as a blessing from God. Final judgment. Life behind bars. Jeffs attempted to gain sympathy through extreme behavior, including hunger strikes and fainting in court. The Texas court, however, remained unmoved. After only a few hours of deliberation, the jury found him guilty on all counts. On August 9, 2011, the Texas court sentenced Warren Jeffs to life in prison, plus an additional 20 years and a massive fine. This effectively guaranteed that he would never leave prison alive. In the ruling, the court scathingly rebuked Jeffs for using religious authority to hunt and prey upon the most vulnerable members of society. The aftermath and the fall of the temple. This verdict sent a thunderous message to cult leaders across the United States. No religious belief sits above the law. While Jeffs remained arrogant even as he was handcuffed, still muttering about divine judgment, he was no longer an all-powerful prophet, he was merely a convicted felon. The conviction sent shockwaves through the fields. While some followers remained in a state of delusion, Waiting for a miracle release, many others began to break free and re-enter society. For the victims, the victory in court was the start of a long, healing process, and the moment their voices, suppressed for decades, were finally heard by the world. The high walls of the Texas prison now serve as a wall of freedom for the girls he once controlled, and an eternal cell where Jeffs must face the reality of his sins. This final conviction put a definitive end to the reign of terror Warren Jeffs inflicted on modern society. Since Warren Jeffs was incarcerated at the Louis C. Pollage unit near Palestine, Texas, his life has been a continuous spiral of decline, a stark contrast to the regal, absolute power he once wielded. However, even behind bars, Jeffs refused to relinquish his grip. He framed his imprisonment as a holy trial, and continued to bombard his followers with messages from his cell. The Failed Prophecies and Madness. In 2012, Jeffs authored a book titled Jesus Christ Message to All Nations. In it, he issued cursed prophecies, claiming he would soon be released and that if the U.S. government failed to do so, God's wrath would bring a global apocalypse. He even set a specific date, claiming the world would end before 2013. To stoke fear among his followers. His erratic behavior continued throughout his sentence. The hunger strikes, he engaged in prolonged fasts to prove his spiritual purity, which led to severe malnutrition. In 2011, he was rushed to the hospital in a medically induced coma. In a humiliating turn for the prophet, the secular courts ordered him to be force-fed, effectively ending his mystical penance through modern medicine. Self-harm. He exhibited signs of severe psychological instability, including incidents where he beat his head against walls or attempted suicide. While loyalists saw this as a symbol of his suffering for their sins, the rest of the world saw it as the unraveling of a criminal's mind. The crumbling of the kingdom. As Jeff's prophecies failed to materialize, the unity of the fields began to fracture. When the world did not end in 2013, as he had promised, many followers began to harbor deep doubts. The final blow to his authority was economic loss of assets by court order. The United Effort Plan U.E.P. The trust that owned the community's land and homes was handed over to the state and former members. The end of fear. Once the followers realized Jeffs no longer owned the roofs over their heads, his reign of terror, built on the threat of eviction, collapsed like a house of cards. The final act, a hollow shell. Recent reports suggest that Jeffs has lost not only his physical health, but his mental faculties as well. During civil proceedings in 2019, his lawyers claimed he had suffered a total mental breakdown, and was incapable of testifying. The man who once manipulated the lives of thousands can reportedly no longer remember his own name. While his victims still struggle with the trauma he inflicted, Jeffs spends his final years trapped in a prison of the mind more restrictive than any cell. His downfall has allowed the Fields community to slowly integrate into modern society. Children are now receiving regular educations, and women are beginning to claim their rights and shed their restrictive dress codes. Conclusion. The end of a dark chapter. Warren Jeffs claimed to be the mouthpiece of God, but he could not escape the judgment of human law. He boasted of the power to destroy the world, yet he could not break a single bar of his cell. His story serves as a grim warning that abuse committed in the name of faith will eventually be brought to light. Jeffs will not be eligible for parole until 2038. Given his current health and the weight of his crimes, it is highly likely he will draw his last breath on a cold prison floor. This is the final chapter for the mad prophet, who once held the power of life and death over tens of thousands. That's it for today's case file. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow with a new case and a new mystery. Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a wonderful time.